anyway, so then we're done with key number 2, and then we get way bizarre, right? So back to Artemis again.
Yeah.
So they break into their lair, basically, right? So they track back the guy that's got the tattoo.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So for backstory,
The drones, the IOI tracks down the tattoo guy
for the backstory for the guys listening,
with the
right?
drones, yeah.
So the guy with the tattoo is the guy that chloroformed Wade.
Mhm.
And he's got a unique tattoo on his face. So
Which I was like, kind of, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Like, why would you send that guy out on missions? Like,
I don't know.
it's like, I'm the bad guy written on his forehead. It's just dumb.
The rebellion.
But
And
he's
it
not
was
a bad guy. But anyway.
almost a nod to Star Wars, though. You got that one person that's kind of standing there looking suspicious, right?
Oh, yeah.
In like every Star Wars movie.
Yeah, that's true.
He just needed the communicator. It would have been all over, right?
With the weird, squeaky, squeaky
exactly.
voice.
So, so they know that guy. They find out via footage that he didn't get blown up. They know that the guy's got the tattoo.
So the Sixers show up at the revolutionaries' base.
Correct, by tracking the tattoo guy, right? And
so
they start blowing up windows and doors, and
that's when Artemis sacrifices herself. She saves Wade and then kind of gives herself up to the Sixers.
Correct, and there's a backstory there where Artemis's father dies, and like
he was an indentured servant.
Yeah. Dies in their version.
You notice they don't use the word indentured.
No.
At all. But it's still the same thing. They still describe the same thing.
Yeah. Which, back to the book, is significantly different than this movie.
It's basically debtor's prison, is what
correct,
it is.
Correct. So if you owe IOI money, you have to go work for them forever, and you'll never get out of it, right? So, so there's a big fight scene again as they break into the place.
Yeah.
Artemis sacrifices herself to get Wade out of there.
Now, this is a live-action fight scene, by the way. This is not in the Oasis.
Correct. She gets Percival out of there through like a back door, locks the door, and then sits there and sacrifices herself after she makes a phone call to you don't know who, right?
Right.
So she gets locked up and she gets taken away to debtor's prison.
Yeah.
Right? And then
suddenly H shows up.
Yeah, Percival's outside. Suddenly H is there and everybody else that's not been arrested, right?
Yeah, Shoto and Daito and Sho. I should make sure. I keep wanting to call him Shoto, but it's,
I
we'll
can't.
get to that later.
Yeah, I can never remember those two names, so I'll let you do that.
Daito and Shoto. Yeah.
But it turns out she had called them.
Yeah.
Right. They jumped to a mail truck.
Yeah,
which I thought was very funny.
Yeah.
And I looked. Did you notice the mail truck's got like little tubes on the side, almost imply that it drives down the road and like shoots out packages or something?
I think it did kind of have that feeling to it, the kind of Japanese instant package thing.
Correct.
Like those vending machines, those giant vending machines.
And graffiti sprayed on it. I mean, it was very much back to Blade Runner nod, right?
Oh yeah.
So they jump in that and they run down the road and get away from the bad guys, of course, right? Now, cut back to Artemis, and she's back locked up in debtor's prison, and now now she's doing strange things where she's in a world building in
she's like in
mines, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, like they're data mining. That's what they must have been doing. They didn't say that, but I got the impression they were data mining, because data mining, you know, in business, I'm talking about. I got the impression that's kind of what they were doing. You know how Google sells our shit to people like Trump, and then they sell us advertising in reverse, because they know what we like. I got the impression that's what that was.
Well,
they don't really explain.
They go through the different things, and they show one guy with a jackhammer.
Yeah,
and they show, her job is she's putting grenades in the ground or bombs in the ground that eventually blow up a bridge. Right?
They were building the fortress around the third gate, essentially the final gate, I should say.
Right.
Yeah.
So, they're in these little habit pads or whatever you want to call them, boxes. I don't know. Like they look like a porta-john, right?
They kind of do, yeah. They're about the same size as a porta-john.
Yeah.
And they've got these rigs that they're attached to. They can't take off. They've got anklets that they're literally tied inside this box. They can't take their helmet off. They can't take their gloves or anything else off. And if the guard in the virtual world hits them with a cattle prod, they get shocked in real life.
Correct.
Which is fucked up.
Oh, it's bad, yeah, and of course it's yelling at them, work violation, right?
Yeah.
So not only get the shock, they get the work violation thing.
Yeah.
So she's in there doing that and planning these bombs in what eventually becomes the third gate, right?
It becomes the final gate. There is no third gate in this. There's just the final gate.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
And every gate's one sequence instead of two, right?
Instead of two, yeah.
But so she's into there doing that. They realize that she's there, and now the other four have got to go rescue her, right?
Yeah.
So plot twist there. She's the one that's in that indentured servitude, and not
on purpose either. What kind of on purpose? So not quite.
No, she didn't set it up, correct?
No.
So significantly back to variations from the book, which I guess we'll get to later.
Yeah,
but
we'll talk about the book in a minute.
yeah, so she's in there. They go after her, but then they realize that she's in there, and of course he's got the password to the main haptic chair, right?
Right. Big Boss 69.
Yeah, Big Boss. Yeah,
it's something like that.
So they figure out a way to hack in there to talk to her.
Did you even notice when she said what's the password and he had trouble saying it to her because it was so stupid?
Yeah,
he's like it's BOSS man 69, and we're like in our heads we're like Boss Man 69. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and she's like, of course
it is. So is that in hackers? The three most common passwords are God something. You know, do you remember hackers?
Yeah,
Back in the 90s, it just reminded me of that, like dumbass passwords.
Crap, I should change mine now.
Yeah. But so what's yours? Big Boy.
Yeah.
Big Boy 69 or something.
Hey, it's Stud Boy.
Stud Boy.
Or Stud Muffin, right?
Stud Muffin 69. Anyway, so she's in the
They find a way to hack in to talk to her.
Right.
And then, of course, she's inside headquarters now because she's been captured.
Now, that's a pretty big twist because it kind of brushes over the idea, like, how on earth are they going to get into the IOI headquarters? And suddenly they just show up. And was it just me, or was that a Pulp Fiction move right there? The whole scene with him and Shoto with the silencers pointing their guns at Sorrento in the chair, it just smacked of Sam Jackson and John Travolta in that great, call me a... What does he say? Say what? Say what again?
Say one more time.
Yeah. It totally looked like that. It was, and in fact, even Shoto's wearing a suit just like they are.
Yeah, I didn't catch that note, but you're right. It's definitely kind of a nod to that.
Definitely,
and basically, you know, for those listening, they hacked the chair.
Yeah.
So they're able to go through and you know, by hacking the chair, they trick him into thinking he's in the real world. Sorrento, yeah. They trick Sorrento into thinking he's in the real world, but they actually caught him on his way transition back. So he's actually in the altered reality. So them pointing the silencers at him and the suits and everything is not where, you know, not actually happening. But he doesn't know that, right?
The reveal is Wade walks off scene
and
steps into H's garage.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. He walks off scene, steps in H's garage. So you have all this back scene going on there. You know, they're standing there with the gun. They're pointed at him, trying to get him to do things, which is what cubicle is she in?
Yeah, they're trying to figure out where she's at and the code to get to her.
Yeah, and what the code is. And so he gives them the code. They figure out the cubicle, and then they, via just conversation, they teach her how to break out. Right. So they get her out of the cubicle, and then of course Sorrento figures out that it's not really happening, and so he goes and escapes, and he gets out of that scenario by getting himself the rest of the way out of the game. Or out of the virtual reality, which they hacked him into, right?
I was a little disappointed in that scene for one thing. Sorrento does. He figures out that he's in the simulation by looking at the corner of his chair and seeing the reflection.
But why would there be...
First, why would there be a reflection?
Yeah.
Second, I think it'd have been better if they'd forgotten the Post-it note. If it had been a mistake on their part. That he looked over...
Yeah, I thought that's what it was going to go to, too. But the other thing I noticed was Shoto's eyes were red.
Yeah, the color was off. I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, I was thinking that would have been the miss because it wasn't like real eyes, right?
That's something we kind of glossed over too, is the ability for them to disguise themselves within the virtual world, which was first demonstrated way back toward the beginning when I can't believe we skipped this part. It's like one of the funniest jokes in the movie. He suddenly becomes famous. He goes to the museum. Of course, everybody's there now because now the contest is back on, and everybody recognizes him. And out of nowhere, here comes Goro from Mortal Kombat, forearms and all, slamming through everybody, yelling at Parzival to get out of the way.
Right.
And grabs Parzival and pulls him into a room, like takes him kind of off camera in a way, like they kind of slide through
like
a wall.
Behind that scene thing.
Yeah,
again.
and suddenly here's Parzival looking up at Goro, which is like 7-8 feet tall. And just the guy's growling down on him, and suddenly this kind of bump is running through Goru's body. And then, of course, as soon as I hear boom, I hear the thump on the chest. I'm like, oh, it's an alien. Sure enough, bam! The alien comes out.
Yeah.
The chest buster comes out and then snaps it at Parzival. Parzival jumps back, and then Goro starts laughing, and the whole suit dissolves, and it's Artemis holding a puppet of an alien in her hand, and she goes chomp chomp.
That really is it was really a great scene. And then she goes and she gives him the Clark Kent goggles, right?
And he looks like Christopher Reeve.
And which is the other thing. The bad guy,
Sorrento.
Sorrento's looks like Superman the whole dang time,
he does.
right?
He looks like big Superman.
Intentionally, he's got like the
spit curl.
Oh yeah,
and the big jaw.
yeah.
But anyway, moving forward, that leads me to what I'm talking about. When Parzival steps off screen, and H is sitting there in the H garb, in the orc cyborg garb, and Wade reaches up, pulls his face off, and peels the Wade character. That's such a metaphor. He peels it off him, and there he is. He's Parzival again.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, they're in the Matrix. What the fuck?
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, that's where we're at. So Sorrento figures it out.
I need the 60-second time machine. I'm losing the...
I know. It's
all right, I got you. So they figure out that he figures out that he's back in partial reality,
Sorrento
right?
figures out he's in.
He jumps all the way back to reality and goes out and starts screaming that they're after the girl.
Yeah.
Right. And so he wants to get to the girl, but by now they're talking to her, and even though they're not there, they teach her how to escape the thing by reaching up and hitting 2 deals. And
Amber and I recently did a VR game at Disneyland. It's a Star Wars game, Star Wars experience, and it's a lot like that. You're wearing a helmet and a suit that hits you when things hit you.
Right.
And you're in a prearranged setup where you're actually in a set that is exactly like the place where you're at. So when you reach out and touch a droid, it's there. When you reach out and touch a handle to pull a lever, it's there. It's really weird.
Oh, wow.
It's such a cool game. And that is totally what you were talking about. They teach her, okay, step 2 feet forward, pull on this. You're going to get yourself out by pulling the handles back. Sure enough, all the clamps come off.
Sure.
And it totally reminded me of that. I was like, oh, that's really neat.
Yeah, and then of course it tells her she's got a 10-minute break.
Yeah, which is weird.
And they're like, "We're gonna get you out, escape," and she's like, "No, I got something to do."
Yeah.
Right. And so so she gets out of the box and basically runs up and while he's running around trying to find her, she runs up to his haptic chair.
Well, they figure out that. She figures out by running up to his haptic chair, which is really cute jokes. A couple throwaway jokes like, what did she say? The entire Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew collection.
And what Pilates for men or something like that.
Kegels for men.
She's like, oh, of course.
She's sitting in Sorrento's haptic chair, and this menu pops up when she sits in of all these things in his database, and those are the first 2 things she's find.
Nancy Drew
and Kegels for men, and it shows this animation of a guy sticking his butt in the air.
Oh man, just wrong.
Oh, it's so funny. There's so many like adult throwaway jokes in there that it's so great.
No, and they're far enough away too. If you take the kids, they won't catch it. But...
We didn't even get to a couple of another Easter egg that I said to you. I'm like, oh my god, when he first went to IROC to hire him, he hired him to find the orb of whatever it is, which creates a force field, which we're getting to now. But when he goes to, it's the box from Gremlins, and I looked, I'm like, it's the box from Gremlins. You're like, I know.
Yeah.
So anyway, she goes off to destroy the orb. She's trying to figure out how to destroy the orb. That's why she sits in the chair and figures out it's an incantation, which I still can't figure out what that is. It sounds familiar to both of us.
It's got to be Lord of the Rings, but that would be the wrong time period for what this nod is.
Not necessarily, because they make a couple other references from the 90s a little bit.
Like Halo, maybe?
The Halo, that's a big one. A bunch of Halo guys show up. The Master Chief and a bunch of others show up, but that's at the end. Plus Spawn. There's a couple other ones in there too. But anyway, so she's off she learns the incantation, she memorizes it, and then goes off
by looking at the thing in his inventory and what the instructions are. So she learns the incantation, and she uses his chair to go turn it off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
she doesn't use his chair. When they come back to the office, she hides behind the chair.
Oh, right, and runs downstairs.
And runs downstairs to the war room, because the war room is filled with all these
Sixers,
the Sixers are all down there wearing their suits and their helmets, and she takes one.
Right.
To try to get back into the fight. And in the meantime, while all this is going on, Parzival is broadcasting his Braveheart speech.
Correct, to the world, to get everybody out there to help. So they're going out to the third key gate, whatever. Now the Sixers are going through. You're watching the Sixers go through this video game, trying to figure out how to get the secret key out of the Atari 2600, right?
They kind of just pop in. It's a throwaway statement that H makes in human form when she's Helen.
Yeah.
And throws Parzival in the back of her mail truck and says, oh, by the way, the Sixers have found the third challenge. And you're like, what? And then they just cut to Sorrento in his avatar and IROC.
Superman. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically Superman. Looking down at this row of IOI Sixers in front of an Atari 2600 and an old
on top
TV,
of ice.
On top of ice. And they have to figure out which game to play. And what they do is how many games are there for Atari? Fucking hundreds.
Yeah, tons
of games, and they have to go about them one at a time. And what they figure out is that they put one in after a minute of play, the ice gives out beneath you.
And
that's not that game. Move on to the next game. So they keep going through all these games, and meanwhile, which we also didn't mention, they've got the oologists.
Yeah.
In the background, feeding information to all these Sixers, just like they do in the book. And the oologists kind of seem like they're just there to learn. Like they're not even the bad guys. They just want to.
No, they're just having fun.
They're just nerding out. Is all they're doing. They're just by the way, and this and that, and
they're all arguing with each other.
Yeah, they're all bitching at each other like a bunch of fanboys. It's funny as hell. But anyway, so they're playing Atari 2600. They haven't figured out which game to play yet.
They put on the giant globe, so Sorrento puts on the shield, so you can't get in. It's a level 99 magic item. There's no way to get through there. He's done his Braveheart speech, right?
Yep. So which is actually quite long and jumps between virtual and real. It's kind of strange. It's really weird.
Yeah, and then of course the army of everybody shows up. H gets the Iron Giant suit going, so H puts an Iron Giant together and shows up in that.
And Shoto gets on his knees and starts meditating.
Yeah, and does nothing.
And
they're yelling at him. They're like, "Come on, you gotta help us out."
For like 10 minutes, they're yelling at him here and there.
Yeah.
So everybody shows up on Planet Doom, which cracks me up, which is also a reference that cracks me up. And it's not as epic as I was hoping, but it is pretty cool. Like just every Batman and, like I said, Spawn and
all the Halo guys,
all these Halos and those mechs and
there's Frog Warrior things. What the heck was that from?
Battletoads?
Battletoads. Those are like in the very front of the line.
I'm pretty sure there was one Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle in there somewhere.
There was literally thousands.
It's literally a movie you have to watch a dozen times to catch everything.
Right.
So this whole horde of people show up. Sorrento sees these people show up. He has no idea that Artemis is behind enemy lines. She manages to hack into the war room and then takes off outside the Citadel and starts fighting for the good guys, apparently. But she's still dressed as a Sixer.
Right.
So she gets on this what looks like a Terminator. That's another reference. We'll get to that in a minute. There's a couple Terminator references. But she gets on what this is like a Terminator automaton kind of thing. It blows it up, kind of in the same way that Legolas does with the giant elephant in Return of the King. Just kind of just weird.
Right. She drops the shield first, right? Because she was on the other side of the shield.
Yeah. That's right. She hacks a drone.
Yeah, she throws out her little recording drone.
That's right.
Right.
Her 8-ball.
Yeah.
The personal selfie drones are 8-balls,
which is another nod to Tron. Remember those?
Well, I don't know about Tron, but the 8-ball is a 80s toy.
Well, yeah, but the little Tron,
the bit.
Yeah, the bits that run around.
So
they use like the bits for all their selfie photos.
That's right. That's right.
So she throws essentially a bit, right? She throws a bit, trying to get. There's a guard running around the crystal thing that's doing the shield.
Yeah.
Right, which coincidentally looks like a 20-sided dice.
Yes, that's true. Another D&D reference.
Yep. So sends it over there and starts doing the incantation, which has got to be Lord of the Rings. It's driving me crazy.
But I've read the only book I've read probably more than this one is Lord of the Rings, and
it's the movies.
But I've watched those movies too, and I'm trying to place what that.
I'll have to research it. But anyway, so she drops the shield.
Yeah.
Right. Sneaking around and hiding from the bad guys and climbing behind the pillar. I mean, very much Star Wars nod.
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
So then she drops the shield, and now the game is on. All everybody that's shown up fights the Sixers that are having the battle. People are dying left and right. He's running around the DeLorean of all things.
Oh my god! You know what? The DeLorean is featured so much in this movie more than it is in the book, and I was like, that's kind of lame.
A one headlight DeLorean.
Well, he got busted out during the first race.
Yeah,
and H never fixed it. So he's got one headlight.
Yeah,
I know it's totally. I guess that's funny, but that is actually a cool scene when he's driving with the gullwing door up.
Yeah,
kind of like Mask, that toy Mask, the flying car, and he's shooting out the door. I mean, it's a pretty badass scene.
Yeah. So H kills the spider walking thing.
He shoots at H, thinking she's a bad guy.
Or not H? No.
Artemis, and she does a nosedive straight through his windshield. Jesus.
Yeah, it peels off the mask.
Yep.
And starts shooting things, right?
Yeah.
And then they run out of ammo pretty quick. And then that's a hilarious scene too, right? They run out of ammo and people start throwing them different guns.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Here, take this.
Take this. And then, of course, there's Chucky.
Oh, Chucky.
So somebody's like, you need this weapon.
How did the line go? Fuck Chucky or something like that. Fucking Chucky. Literally, that's the line.
And Chucky, so they throw Chucky into.
H says, "Here, try this." H is the Iron Giant.
Yeah.
And H turns in the van, not in the movie, but in the van, kind of.
Yeah, so back in real.
And says, "Here, take this," and mimes throwing him something, which is totally something you'd see behind the scenes.
Correct.
And it's so cute. And he reaches up to grab it, and suddenly it switches back to the VR, and it's Chucky with a big knife in his hand, and he's
trying to stab him. Yeah.
And Artemis and Wade are like, "Get this thing out of here!"
Yeah.
And they throw it out the window, and it kills like 24 Sixers in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, and then it flashes back to the real world, and you just see them all go red as they die.
Just in this pattern of ah!
Oh yeah, and of course, every time a Sixer dies, they kick him out of their chair and throw another Sixer in there, right?
It's really weird, but okay.
Yeah, evidently they didn't have enough rigs. I
guess
know.
not. Yeah.
So yeah, Chucky was funny.
It's just a throwaway joke, but it was so good. Fucking Chucky.
Yeah. There was a couple other things, a rail gun or something like that, right?
Yeah,
and they kill
these are all references to all kinds of stuff.
It must have been a 20-minute combat. I don't know. It was impressive.
It was Lord of the Rings epic. It really was.
And then you got the Iron Giant running around out there, right? And you got the mechanoid Godzilla.
No, I'll give you this. I was not expecting the Mech Godzilla.
No,
because the battle, we'll get to it in the book, but the battle in the book is epic giant robot epic.
Multiple
giant robot. And this one has a few of those, but not an Iron Giant's not in the book at all. But the Iron Giant, I'm like, how is he gonna? And then suddenly here comes Sorrento, and as soon as you threw that artifact down, I was like, oh, Mecha Godzilla. And sure enough, that's what it was. And this was badass. The Mecha Godzilla was so cool.
And they did a good job of it too. They didn't just show up with the Mecha Godzilla like everything else. This one built around him.
Yep, like a transformer.
Yeah. So it kind of, throw it down, little tiny guy, turns into the thing, all of a sudden he's inside this Mecha Godzilla.
Which the only other time they did that was at the beginning when through the DeLorean. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course he couldn't be at the front of the race because he had no money.
Yeah.
So he had to run around the back of the race and collect coins and get enough fuel to get his car to the end of the race.
H is like, that's so pathetic, man.
Yeah. Which that is a nod to the book, at least. So they kind of got that.
A little bit.
But
yeah, that and the great part is Artemis looks out the broken windshield, of course, that she flew through, and goes, "It's Mecha Godzilla!" Like totally out of a Godzilla movie.
And both gull wing doors are open. They're all firing. They're like having combat out both gull wings.
That was pretty badass. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so that guy the Godzilla fights the Iron Giant.
And
right,
kicks his ass.
Kicks his ass. Iron Giant's broken. You think H is toast, and all of a sudden,
Shoto.
They're like, Shoto, darn it! He's still on his knees.
He's still
this
kneeling.
Whole combat.
And this is total anime. This is total back in the day Robotech and Transor Z and Voltron. He's kneeling on the van as they're hiding from the Sixers in real world, and they keep shouting at him the whole 10 minutes of fighting, like, "Get off your ass! Get up here!" And nothing. And suddenly he opens his eyes, and you remember, the Firefly shows up. The boat, the ship, Firefly, Serenity, although they call it the Vonnegut in the book, shows up. The bay door opens. Shoto stands up and goes, "I choose Gundam."
Yeah.
And he puts on the glove that H got back in the beginning of the movie. You can be any mech you want.
Correct.
He chooses Gundam, and it is total anime. He falls out of the sky. He does the pose, and you hear the ching. The whole shiny thing.
It turns into the giant.
Oh, it's so awesome. And rather than jump on Mechagodzilla, he jumps past him and stops and jumps over his buddies and protects them from the shot.
Correct.
And then turns around and proceeds to kick
they sort of get in the big combat, and he's cutting up Godzilla and stuff.
So badass. But
H runs over and starts trying to fix Iron Man, right? Or no, H is in Iron. Yeah.
Iron
so Artemis runs over there.
But they established that there's a time limit to the Gundam.
60 seconds.
60 seconds.
Yep.
And that's from Ultraman. That's the Ultraman thing.
Artemis is fixing Iron Giant. They're having combat.
Right.
So
the Gundam, Iron Giant, Gundam gets his butt kicked. He loses time, runs out of time.
Correct.
And then Shoto just gets blasted by Godzilla. And the Iron Giant pops back up again, jumps on his back, and his hand is closed. And you don't see it until you come close on the hand. He opens it up, and there's Artemis standing there.
Correct.
And she throws, remember those monster balls?
Was it a monster ball, or was it like an ugly... What was
it? Was something like that. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, they had those either monster balls or uglies or something.
Yeah, ugly ball or whatever
they
it was.
They were rubber balls that looked like monsters.
Yeah, they were horrible. Like the ugly kid, like Garbage Pail Kids. Remember those?
And you squeezed on them, and their eyeballs popped out and shit. And this one was a mummy. I remember this one. This is like the flagship one, like the one that everybody had. You should know these toys.
Oh, jeez, you think?
Well, no, I'm not going to.
So she shoots a hole into the side of the Godzilla,
right through the eye.
Yeah.
And
of
there's
course you can
Sorrento.
see Sorrento, and so she throws in that little ball,
Yep.
and the ball starts pulsing and making all kinds of funny
And
noises.
laughing at him.
He's like, "Oh, what the heck?" And it explodes.
And he explodes in the funniest way possible. Like his face bulges out like a Tex Avery cartoon, and then just splatters like a ball of red water.
Right.
It's just so funny. And then of course Godzilla drops, and that's the end of that. Now at this point, I'm trying to figure out where. I mean, I know where we're at, but I'm trying to figure out where it goes at next.
So they run up to the bridge.
Sorrento figures out she's still behind lines.
Correct. So he runs back in real world,
In real
trying
world.
to figure out where she's at, and he goes because he
She's
knows
in the war room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they run up with the Iron Giant now when everybody else are trying to get into the castle now, right?
The Iron Giant spreads himself, or rather H, spreads herself
After
across
the bridges blows that she had been putting the darn
Right.
explosives in, right?
and the lava and everything.
Yeah. So the Iron Giant uses itself as a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody climbs across Iron Giant.
Now IROC shows up. And shows up with that badass kind of weird skull penis cannon he's
Yeah,
got.
I don't know what the heck that was.
It's so weird. It's just like a dog's penis. Like just shoots out. It's just strange. But he's shooting the hands off the Iron Giant who's about to fall into the lava.
Correct.
And everyone's trying to get over him before IROC can kill them. And of course somebody shoots IROC's arm off and coins go flying. And he's like, "Oh crap, my arm!" And runs away with coins flying out of his arm.
Yeah, trying to put the coins back in. Because when your character dies, you just drop all your coins, right?
Yeah, but his arm just turned into coins.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And then shot off enough of the fingers of the giant, though. The giant falls in the lava.
Yeah.
H's character dies, basically, but
And
with
does
a thumbs up.
does the Terminator with the thumbs up in the lava.
Oh, jeez, yeah, the total Terminator theme. The only thing is the hand.
The hand up.